I'm Tabitha, and today we're talking statistics. You may have noticed that I haven't been doing monthly statistics videos in 2020. In 2019, I did those, but in 2020, I'm not. So why not? Well, the first reason is because I've been putting some statistics on my blog every time I do a review video here on this channel. But that's really just reading statistics, and it's only simple ones, like what genre did I read? What publication year did it come out? Was it indie or not? So today, I decided I'm going to give you all the statistics for first quarter. That's the first 3 months of 2020, related to writing and reading, and we're going to dig into some bigger reading statistics. Ready? Let's go. First up, let's take a look at my writing statistics. My focus for 2020 has been on year-long goals. So I'm not focusing on monthly goals anymore or even daily goals. I'm just trying to meet my year-long goals, and you already know that. However, I have been tracking what I write every day and what project those words are for. So let's take a look at how my word count looked for the first quarter of 2020. As you can see, January and March were pretty close together here. In fact, if I were tracking monthly goals like I did in 2019, I probably would have met my monthly goal in January and March. February, however, is an entirely different story. If you add all three of these months together, it turns out I wrote a grand total of 93,761 words in the first quarter of 2020. Beautiful. So that includes words written on scripts that I might do for these videos, blog posts, actual drafts of books, or even words that I put into my idea journal, even though they don't have a specific project attached to them. Let's take a deeper look at what the words will look like for each project. So on this graph, January is blue, February is red, and March is yellow. So as you can see in January, it looks like my two biggest projects were Kingdom of Fron, which makes sense because I was drafting book 5, and my idea journal, because I was trying to figure out what my next work in progress was going to be after that. In February, which is red, you notice everything stayed pretty clumped together. I think that goes hand in hand with the fact that I didn't write a lot of words in February. I was sort of scattered and all over the place. I didn't write a lot. In March, which is yellow, it looks like the young adult contemporary took a big jump and came up pretty high. I think that's because I almost finished that in March. So it did jump out to me when you look at this graph that my idea journal is still dominating where I write my words. That makes sense. Even with so many active works in progress, I've always been the kind of person who needs to write down an idea when it comes to me. So if I think of a new character or a new scene or a new setting or even start to outline something, all of that gets filed under my idea journal. So even though I actively have projects I'm working on, yes, I do write in my idea journal almost every day. Now let's talk about my editing. You already know editing is one of the things that I'm focusing on in 2020 because I finished a lot of things in 2019 and those have to be edited before they're going to be ready for public consumption. So how has my progress been on editing? Let's check. You already know that I track editing by chapters that I edited. So if I wrote a short story, I'd edit the entire thing and call it one chapter. But most of my stuff isn't short stories, so this is chapters that I've edited. As you can see, February was my most productive month for editing. That makes sense because I was digging into final edits for Training Tutor. If I was doing first round edits on something, I'd expect to see my chapters and my word count go up because I usually add scenes or chapters when I do first round edits. But for Training Tutor, I'm doing polishing, final edits. That's the reason why you see my edits go up, but my word count stayed down. So really that justifies that low word count for February. When you add these all together, it turns out I edited a staggering total of 73 chapters in the first quarter of 2020. Lastly, let's take a look at my reading statistics. Besides writing, you know I do a lot of reading. In fact, I do a lot of reading around here. On my monthly blog post, every time I read 5 books, I put a companion post on the blog. Those include basic statistics for what I read in that crop of 5. So today, we're going to dig into some of the deeper statistics. First up, let's remind everybody or take a look at how many total pages I read in the first quarter of 2020. So this graph makes it look like my reading progress declined every month, but that's actually not true because remember this is pages read. In January, I think it was 18 books, February was like 13, and March was maybe 15. So it really just means I read some shorter books in March. and not really that my productivity decreased. If you combine all these and add them together, it turns out I read 12,106 pages in the first quarter of 2020. Wow, right? So where do I get these books? It turns out I get asked that question a lot now that I have this review channel. I think some people think that all of my books get given to me for free, which isn't entirely accurate. So I decided to break it down by where these books actually came from. Let's look at that graph. On this graph, again, January is blue, February is red, and March is yellow. If you look all the way over there, it looks like ARCs. I actually had none in January, which is weird. So ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy. Those are copies given to me by publishers or independent authors. They are free for me, and they are given to me before the publishing date so that I can review them. So as you can see, that only was 3 books this quarter. Review requests, which is the next category over, those are again books that are given to me free by either traditional publishers or by the independent author, but those ones are given to me after the book has already been released. And it looks like that was 12 books maybe? Next box over there is books that I purchased, outright paid for and purchased myself. You can see I kind of went on a buying spree in January. I think I had gift cards. So I bought like maybe 7 books this quarter that I've already read. Should be fair, I should mention that I've also bought, I think, at least 7 more that I haven't read yet, so they're not included in this statistic. The next category over there is books I got from the library, and you can see that is my biggest category. So yes, most of the books that I read, I didn't pay for, but you wouldn't have to either. They're from the library. I have a lot. I'm not even going to count it. That's a lot. It is most of what I read. And the last one down there is books that were given to me. I enter a lot of giveaways, either on social media or at YA Book Central, and those books I won in the giveaway. I should mention again, these are just the 5 that I won that I read this quarter. I think I've won at least 2 other giveaways that I haven't read yet. Over on my blog, if you read those companion posts, I've been tracking the genre and the star rating of every time I rate 5 books, but I decided it would be fun to put them together and see if there's any relationship between genres and the star rating that I give it. So here's that graph. Across the bottom, you see the star rating. The colors represent a genre here. So you can see romance, purple, dominated my 1 stars. I gave this quarter 3 books 1-star ratings, 2 romance and 1 science fiction. I don't think that really surprises anyone. A lot of romance has the tropes that I personally don't like. So without looking, I'm going to bet these were tropey books. You also notice, or I noticed, that fantasy, red, and contemporary, blue, are all over the place. That tells me that I'm not biased. I don't read a fantasy book and instantly give it 5 stars just because it's fantasy. I generally can rate the book on its own merits, and so that's filtered into this graph, I think. My 5-star ratings, first of all, I'm pretty proud of how many there are, but my 5-star ratings I notice are kind of dominated by contemporary blue and science fiction green. So, interesting. Next up, I decided to take a look at independent books and what they're rated. People ask me all the time if independent books tend to trend lower, if they're worse quality than traditional. So I have my opinion, but I like to let the data speak for itself. So here's the graph that shows you what I rated it, which is down the side, and the bars go across telling you how many books I rated that, and whether it's red, independent, or blue, traditionally published. Remember, the difference is independently published books may be a small press or self-published, but they had no agent representing them. So it does look like the only 1-star ratings I gave this quarter were for independent books. My guess, without going back and looking at those, was that either these were books that weren't ready to be published or that just were problematic for me. And I don't really remember what books they were, so I couldn't tell you that exactly. So yes, it appears sometimes there are some independent books that weren't quite ready to be published. But the rest of these categories from 2 to 5 stars are really pretty close. If you look at it, it looks like traditionally published is higher every time. But remember, these are not percentages. This is actual count. And I read more traditional books. I read 24 traditionally published books this quarter and 21 independently published books this quarter. Yes, that's only a difference of 3, but most of these are only up 1 more book in the category. So I think it kind of works out. Really, it turns out it doesn't matter. If you filter out those few that weren't meant to be published, which is what I do for you on this channel, the rest of them are going to follow that same curve, whether it's independent or traditional. There's problematic ones in both. There's amazing hidden gems you're going to love in both. So to sum up my statistics, I just want to say this. Sometimes I think the reason why I love statistics so much is because even when it feels like you didn't make enough progress, you didn't do what you wanted to do, you didn't accomplish enough, something like this shows you how wrong you are. So in March, I wrote a lot of words. But in January, I read a lot of pages. And in February, I edited a lot of chapters. So although it didn't feel like enough at the time, because I didn't do all of it in 1 month, when you get to look at this whole quarter and you look at these statistics I just did, it makes me feel accomplished overall. And that really is the power of statistics, to show you what you did do and what you did accomplish. That's why I love them so much. Anyway, that's it for me and my first quarter of 2020 statistics. Thank you for being here and for letting me talk about my progress and my data in a way that is interesting to me. If there's something you are curious about related to reading, writing, or editing, ask me in the comments because I'd love to try to pull the statistic for you and find you that answer. Drop a comment to let me know you're still here. Hit subscribe and tap that little bell so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your own dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye!